The human stepped off the transport pod and felt the alien wind brush against his face. The sky was not blue, as it was on Earth. It shimmered in swirling shades of violet and green, as if the clouds themselves were alive. The ground beneath him glowed faintly, lighting the path ahead with a strange, soft pulse. Strange creatures with translucent skin and glowing eyes peeked from behind twisted trees, watching him. Every step he took seemed to draw their attention, yet he moved with calm determination. He was alone, surrounded by a world that did not belong to him, yet he felt a strange thrill. His mission was simple in words, impossible in reality. The alien queen, Valeria, had ruled this planet for centuries. Her word was law, and her guards were ruthless. Every human who had come here before had either disappeared or died. Yet he had volunteered. Humans were not supposed to survive here, but he carried with him something the aliens could not measure: courage and the will to face the impossible. He had no weapon that could pierce alien armor. No technology advanced enough to outmatch their ships, only his mind, his instincts, and a strange confidence that kept his heart steady. The first few moments were quiet. The forest around him hummed softly, as if the planet itself was alive and observing him. Birds with metallic feathers chirped in patterns he could not understand. The leaves above shimmered like crystal, reflecting light in 1,000 directions. Every sound was alien, every smell unfamiliar, yet he breathed it all in, steadying himself. Fear whispered at the edges of his mind, but he ignored it. He had trained for danger, and danger had never stopped a human before. Then he saw them, alien soldiers, tall and lean, with skin that looked like polished metal, eyes glowing with intelligence and suspicion. They moved silently, as if part of the shadows themselves. They did not run, did not attack at first. They simply watched. And in their gaze, he saw curiosity, a feeling humans rarely evoked in these creatures. He understood at once that the queen might be observing him from above, hidden, testing him without revealing her presence. He clenched his fists and moved forward with careful steps, keeping his body relaxed, ready for anything. As he passed the first clearing, a sudden rustle in the leaves made him freeze. An arrow, dark and sleek, shot toward him faster than his eyes could track. Without thinking, he extended his hand and caught it. The shaft burned against his skin. Alien poison seared through his fingers like ice and fire at the same time. He did not scream. He held the arrow steady, feeling the burn but not letting it control him. Around him, the soldiers gasped in shock. No human had ever caught a poisoned arrow with bare hands and survived. And then he felt it, the unmistakable presence of the queen. Valeria stepped out from the shadows. She was taller than any human had ever imagined, her skin pale as moonlight, eyes glowing like molten gold. Her hair flowed like liquid silver, and her gaze was sharp, almost piercing through him. Yet, instead of anger, he saw curiosity in her eyes. She had never seen a human act like this. Most humans would have fallen instantly, writhing in agony. But he stood tall, holding the deadly weapon as if it were nothing. A small smile touched her lips, though she quickly suppressed it. She did not speak yet, only watched. And he did not flinch, did not bow, did not beg for mercy. Instead, he straightened his back, meeting her gaze with calm, steady eyes. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath. For the first time in centuries, a human had walked onto her world without fear and had shown her a spark she had never seen, a spark of courage, of defiance, of spirit. And in that moment, the queen felt something shift inside her. This human, he was not like the others. He might be fragile, small, and mortal, but there was something in him that made her heart beat faster. Something that told her the story of his courage had only just begun. The arrow burned his hand. A silent, creeping fire that sank into his veins. He did not release it. Every instinct told him to drop it, to flee, to scream, but he held it steady. Around him, the alien soldiers froze, their glowing eyes wide with shock. They had seen countless humans perish in the forests of Valeria, but never one who could face death so calmly. The queen's golden eyes narrowed as she stepped closer, her presence heavy and commanding. "Do you not feel fear, human?" she asked, her voice smooth but sharp, echoing through the clearing. Every word carried power, yet curiosity laced them. "This poison will take your life within moments if you do not act." He looked at her, his breathing steady despite the burning that spread through his arm. "Fear doesn't decide my actions," he said simply. "I move because I must. I survive because I choose to." His words were not boastful, they were truth. Valeria's gaze flickered with something unfamiliar. Most humans begged for mercy. Most humans ran at the first threat. But here stood one, holding her deadliest weapon like it was nothing. She had watched humans for centuries, yet none had ever shown this kind of courage, this kind of calm defiance. She felt a strange pull in her chest, a stirring she did not understand. The human looked around carefully, searching for the antidote or a way to neutralize the poison. He knew the arrow's effect would spread quickly. His fingers shook slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer intensity of pain. The soldiers whispered behind him, some moving closer, some stepping back, unsure of what to do. Valeria's eyes followed each of his movements with fascination. Then he did something that made everyone gasp. He placed the arrow's tip against a nearby tree and twisted it just enough to release the smallest drop of poison onto the bark. Using a piece of cloth from his uniform, he wrapped his fingers and drew the venom carefully away from his skin. Each movement was precise, careful, and dangerous. One wrong slip and he would collapse, ending his life instantly. Valeria's heart beat faster. She had faced humans before, studied them, even captured them, but never had she seen one so clever, so deliberate, so fearless. It was not brute strength that saved him. It was mind, instinct, and courage. Her pride as a ruler flared in a strange way, a mix of irritation and admiration. She could not understand why this human made her feel uncertain. Finally, the burning in his hand slowed. He looked at the queen directly. "I survived your arrow. I survived because I did not let fear control me," he said. His words were calm, yet every syllable carried determination. "I am human. We survive because we refuse to give in, even when the odds are against us." A silence fell over the clearing. The soldiers looked at one another, unsure whether to advance or retreat. The queen, however, felt a thrill that startled her. Humans were weak, fragile, mortal. Yet this one had faced death without flinching. He had shown her something she had never seen before, a spark, a light, a courage that refused to bow to power. Valeria finally spoke again, softer this time. "You are unusual," she admitted. "No human has ever faced me like this. You could have died, yet you stand. I want to see more." The human nodded slightly, still keeping his gaze steady. He did not bow, did not smile. He simply acknowledged her words and the danger around him. He had survived the arrow, but he knew this was only the beginning. The queen had taken notice. That notice would be both a challenge and an opportunity. For the first time in her long life, Valeria felt a flicker of something dangerous and exhilarating. A human had captured her attention, and perhaps, unknowingly, her heart. The air between them seemed charged, alive with possibilities she could not yet name. She did not trust humans, but she was drawn to him, and that was a feeling she rarely allowed herself to feel. The forest seemed to grow quieter, the alien soldiers holding their breath. The poisoned arrow had not only failed to kill him, it had opened a door. And through that door, something extraordinary was beginning. The human had survived, and the queen was watching. The arrow burned his hand, a silent, creeping fire that sank into his veins. He did not release it. Every instinct told him to drop it, to flee, to scream, but he held it steady. Around him, the alien soldiers froze, their glowing eyes wide with shock. They had seen countless humans perish in the forests of Valyria, but never one who could face death so calmly. The queen's golden eyes narrowed as she stepped closer, her presence heavy and commanding. "Do you not feel fear, human?" she asked, her voice smooth but sharp, echoing through the clearing. Every word carried power, yet curiosity laced them. "This poison will take your life within moments if you do not act." He looked at her, his breathing steady despite the burning that spread through his arm. "Fear doesn't decide my actions," he said simply. "I move because I must. I survive because I choose to." His words were not boastful, they were truth. Valeria's gaze flickered with something unfamiliar. Most humans begged for mercy. Most humans ran at the first threat. But here stood one, holding her deadliest weapon like it was nothing. She had watched humans for centuries, yet none had ever shown this kind of courage, this kind of calm defiance. She felt a strange pull in her chest, a stirring she did not understand. The human looked around carefully, searching for the antidote or a way to neutralize the poison. He knew the arrow's effect would spread quickly. His fingers shook slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer intensity of pain. The soldiers whispered behind him, some moving closer, some stepping back, unsure of what to do. Valeria's eyes followed each of his movements with fascination. Then he did something that made everyone gasp. He placed the arrow's tip against a nearby tree and twisted it just enough to release the smallest drop of poison onto the bark. Using a piece of cloth from his uniform, he wrapped his fingers and drew the venom carefully away from his skin. Each movement was precise, careful, and dangerous. One wrong slip and he would collapse, ending his life instantly. Valeria's heart beat faster. She had faced humans before, studied them, even captured them, but never had she seen one so clever, so deliberate, so fearless. It was not brute strength that saved him. It was mind, instinct, and courage. Her pride as a ruler flared in a strange way, a mix of irritation and admiration. She could not understand why this human made her feel uncertain. Finally, the burning in his hand slowed. He looked at the queen directly. "I survived your arrow. I survived because I did not let fear control me," he said. His words were calm, yet every syllable carried determination. "I am human. We survive because we refuse to give in, even when the odds are against us." A silence fell over the clearing. The soldiers looked at one another, unsure whether to advance or retreat. The queen, however, felt a thrill that startled her. Humans were weak, fragile, mortal. Yet this one had faced death without flinching. He had shown her something she had never seen before, a spark, a light, a courage that refused to bow to power. Valeria finally spoke again, softer this time. "You are unusual," she admitted. "No human has ever faced me like this. You could have died, yet you stand. I want to see more." The human nodded slightly, still keeping his gaze steady. He did not bow, did not smile. He simply acknowledged her words and the danger around him. He had survived the arrow, but he knew this was only the beginning. The queen had taken notice. That notice would be both a challenge and an opportunity. For the first time in her long life, Valeria felt a flicker of something dangerous and exhilarating. A human had captured her attention, and perhaps, unknowingly, her heart. The air between them seemed charged, alive with possibilities she could not yet name. She did not trust humans, but she was drawn to him, and that was a feeling she rarely allowed herself to feel. The forest seemed to grow quieter, the alien soldiers holding their breath. The poisoned arrow had not only failed to kill him, it had opened a door. And through that door, something extraordinary was beginning. The human had survived. And the queen was watching. The forest had grown darker as night crept across the alien sky. Yet the human moved forward with steady determination. Valeria had led him deeper into her domain, to a section where the air itself seemed alive, whispering threats in a language no human could understand. Mechanical creatures with sharp claws lurked in the shadows. Strange plants with glowing thorns reached for him with every step. Each moment felt like walking on the edge of death, yet he did not falter. The queen observed silently, her golden eyes following him with careful attention. Every instinct told her to test him further, to see if his courage was mere luck or something deeper. The human did not strike out recklessly. He analyzed, planned, and adapted. A vine lashed at his leg. He jumped back, grabbed it, and used it to swing over a pit filled with sharp crystalline spikes. Valeria's breath caught. Not only had he survived, he had turned danger into advantage. A sudden roar echoed through the cavernous clearing, and a massive beast charged at him, its teeth glinting like knives. His first instinct was not to fight, but to observe. He dodged to the side, grabbed a fallen branch, and disarmed the creature by striking a vulnerable joint in its legs. It toppled without a single scratch to him. Valeria's eyes narrowed, a faint smile breaking her regal composure. She had never imagined a human could face her most dangerous creations and survive so skillfully. The human's heart raced, not from fear, but from focus. Every movement was deliberate, each decision a balance between life and death. A swarm of glowing insects rose from the ground, their bites laced with paralyzing venom. He did not panic. He covered his face with the cloth from his uniform, rolled into a nearby hollow, and waited until the swarm passed. Then he continued, unscathed and resolute. Valeria felt a strange pull in her chest. Humans were fragile, mortal, insignificant in the eyes of most species. Yet this one seemed to embody something far greater than strength or skill. He carried a fire within him that defied logic, a courage that refused to bow even in the face of death. Her pulse quickened as she watched him navigate the dangers, not with arrogance, but with intelligence and unwavering focus. A final test awaited him, a narrow bridge of floating stones over a chasm filled with glowing, writhing energy. The stones shifted with every step, and the air crackled with lethal sparks. He paused, observing the pattern, then leapt from one stone to another with precision. Halfway across, a stone tipped violently. He grabbed the edge of the next, hanging on with one hand, and swung himself to safety. Valeria's breath caught. She had designed this bridge to break even the bravest of warriors. Yet he moved across it as though he were born for it. When he reached the far side, exhaustion painted his face, but his eyes still burned with determination. The queen approached slowly, her golden eyes reflecting the starlight above. "You survive everything I place before you," she said softly, almost a whisper. "Yet survival alone does not earn my heart. Why do you face death with such calm?" The human straightened, though his body shook slightly from fatigue. "Because courage is not the absence of fear," he said. "It is the choice to move forward even when fear is here. Life is short, and moments of choice define us. I choose to face danger because it is right, not because it is easy." A silence fell between them, heavy and alive. Valeria studied him, feeling an unfamiliar warmth in her chest. Humans were fragile, yet here he stood, unbroken. He did not rely on strength, technology, or alien weapons, only his heart, his mind, and his courage. And it was enough. More than enough. For the first time, the queen felt admiration mixed with awe. She had ruled for centuries, faced enemies who would tremble at her power. Yet this human moved through peril with a dignity and spirit she had never witnessed. Something in her shifted. A seed of respect had grown into a spark of fascination, something she had never allowed herself to feel for any mortal being. The trial ended, but the impression he left remained. The human had faced the impossible and survived. He had demonstrated not just skill, but heart. And in that heart, Valeria saw something more than courage, a reflection of something she had long forgotten. The beauty of a spirit unbroken. A soul unyielding, a human soul that could reach even hers. The human sat on a rock at the edge of a shimmering alien lake. Exhaustion written across his face. Sweat streaked through the grime of his trials, and his uniform was torn from every obstacle he had faced. Yet, despite his fatigue, his eyes burned with a quiet intensity that made the air around him feel alive. Valeria stood across the lake, her golden gaze fixed on him, the glow from the water reflecting in her hair. She had brought him here deliberately, away from the soldiers, away from judgment. To see him in a moment of vulnerability. "You have endured more than any human should," she said softly, her voice carrying across the still water. "And yet you do not crumble, you do not beg for mercy. Tell me, why?" He looked at her, water shimmering in his reflection, and allowed a small, tired smile. "Because I do not fight for myself alone. I fight because it is right. Because standing down would make me less than I am. And because—" He paused, eyes meeting hers fully for the first time. "I do not fear being seen for who I truly am." The queen felt a jolt she did not expect. Most humans hid their fears, their weaknesses, or their emotions. They were small, fragile creatures who relied on cunning or luck to survive. Yet here sat one who bore his heart openly, unafraid, steady. Something inside her stirred a mixture of curiosity, respect, and something far more dangerous, admiration. Tempered with a spark of fascination she could not ignore. Slowly, she stepped closer, letting the distance between them shrink. The air seemed to hum with tension and unspoken words. He did not flinch, did not rise in fear. He simply watched her approach, steady and calm. As if he already knew this moment mattered more than any trial he had endured. "I have ruled for centuries," Valeria said quietly, her usual commanding tone softened. "I have seen countless mortals, brave warriors, and clever strategists. None have touched me the way you do, human. You face death, not with arrogance, but with courage and honesty. Why does this feel different?" The human's chest rose and fell as he breathed, yet he did not avert his eyes. "Because courage is not about the battles we win, or the fear we defeat. It is about being true to ourselves, even when the world expects us to bow or hide. I cannot hide who I am, and I will not pretend to be afraid when it is unnecessary. That is all." A silence fell, heavy and charged, as Valeria considered his words. For centuries, she had been untouchable, cold, precise in her judgment. And yet, she found herself drawn to him, feeling a connection she had never felt before. His courage, his honesty, his heart, it all radiated a warmth that unsettled her, yet captivated her completely. The human slowly rose to his feet, moving toward her with measured steps. Each movement was calm, deliberate, and yet full of life. The queen found herself holding her breath, unsure whether to command him back or see. Simply let the moment happen. She let it happen. "You do not know the power you carry, human," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not your strength, not your skill, but the courage and spirit that shines brighter than any weapon I have known. You are extraordinary." He inclined his head slightly, a quiet acknowledgement of her words. "I do not need to be extraordinary to survive," he said softly. "I only need to be true to myself. That has been enough to keep me alive." So far, Valeria felt her chest tighten, an unfamiliar flutter she could not name. She had expected fear, weakness, or desperation from a human. Instead, she found resilience, honesty, and a heart that refused to bow. For the first time, she felt something beyond fascination, an undeniable pull toward this mortal being who dared to meet her without flinching. The lake between them reflected the starlight. Above, shimmering like silver, the human and the queen stood across from each other, two beings from different worlds, connected not by power or species, but by courage and spirit. And in that quiet moment, Valeria realized something terrifying and exhilarating. She wanted him, not just for his survival, but for the fire he carried inside, the heart he refused to hide, and the courage that had touched even her unyielding soul. The quiet moment by the alien lake did not last. The poison from the arrow had been slow-acting, a hidden threat that the human had ignored in the heat of his trials. Suddenly, his knees buckled, and he gasped, clutching his chest. His skin had grown pale, and sweat poured down his face. The queen's eyes widened in alarm. She had underestimated the lingering venom, and now, for the first time, she felt a surge of panic for a human one she had grown to respect and even care for. "Hold on," Valeria commanded, her voice sharp, slicing through the alien silence. Her golden eyes glimmered with urgency as she waved her hand. The surrounding soldiers froze, uncertain. No human had ever earned such concern from the queen. She moved swiftly to his side, kneeling beside him, her hands glowing faintly with alien energy as she searched for the poison's path within him. The human tried to speak, to reassure her, but his voice faltered. His body shook violently, the venom crawling through his veins like fire. He looked up at her with a weak, determined smile. I didn't think it would last this long," he whispered, his breath ragged. Valeria's mind raced. Alien medicine alone would not work. He needed something rare, something potent enough to counteract the toxin. In her private chambers, she had a vial of liquid so precious. It had been reserved for emergencies involving the most valuable of her people. She retrieved it quickly, hands steady despite the fear she felt deep in her chest. "You will survive," she said firmly, her voice softer now, tinged with emotion she rarely allowed herself to show. "I will not let this arrow take you." The human's eyes flickered with trust, even as his body convulsed. He had faced death countless times in her trials, yet this time, the danger felt different, personal, intimate, final. He realized, as he met her gaze, that she was not merely an observer now. She was actively fighting for him, risking her focus, her reputation, to save a human. Valeria pressed the vial to his lips, guiding the liquid carefully down his throat. The human coughed violently, but slowly, color returned to his face. The burning in his veins began to fade, the tightness in his chest loosening. She did not let go, keeping her hands hovering over him, her presence steadying him even as his body fought the last remnants of the poison. Minutes passed like hours. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath. Finally, the human's eyes, once glassy with the poison's grip, focused on her. He tried to speak but could only manage a hoarse whisper. "Thank you." Valeria's heart skipped. She had spent centuries commanding armies, ruling worlds, and crushing threats with her power. Yet here she was, kneeling beside a mortal human, feeling a connection she could not name. His courage had drawn her in, yes, but it was his vulnerability, his trust, and the way he faced life without complaint that had captivated her fully. "You are not finished yet," she said softly, brushing a strand of sweat-soaked hair from his forehead. "You survive because you refuse to give in. That is what makes you human and extraordinary." The human managed a weak smile, his hand reaching up to touch hers in quiet gratitude. The queen did not pull away. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the pull of her heart, the warmth of concern that went beyond duty. Humans were fragile, fleeting, but this one had shown her something she had long forgotten, the power of a spirit unbroken. A life fought for not out of fear, but out of courage and truth. As he slowly rose to his feet, steadied by her support, the queen realized that something profound had shifted. This human had survived impossible trials, faced death repeatedly, and now, even poisoned and weak, had allowed her to save him. A bond had formed, fragile yet unbreakable. born of courage, trust, and the quiet understanding that neither of them could ever forget this moment. And in the golden glow of her eyes, he saw something he had never expected from an alien queen: care, concern, and perhaps the beginning of affection. The forest was quiet now, bathed in the soft glow of alien starlight. The human stood before Valeria, steady and alive, though still weak from the lingering poison. His chest rose and fell slowly, his eyes shining with determination. The queen watched him, her golden gaze soft but piercing, filled with a mix of admiration, awe, and something far more personal, a warmth she had never allowed herself to feel. "You have survived everything I have placed before you," she said, her voice calm but trembling slightly. "You faced death with courage, with intelligence, with heart. And you have allowed me to save you, even when I did not have to. You have earned more than my respect." "Human." He inclined his head slightly, a quiet acknowledgement. But his eyes held something more: hope, trust, and the quiet pride of someone who had faced impossible odds and lived. I do not need respect," he said softly, his voice still hoarse. "I only need to know that I stood for what I believed, that I did not falter. That has always been enough for me." Valeria's chest tightened. Humans were small, fragile creatures, yet this one had endured more than any alien she had ever known. And yet, it was not just his endurance, not just his courage, it was his heart. His honesty, his unwavering spirit, the way he had faced life without pretense or fear. It drew her in, shattered walls she had built over centuries. She realized, in a heartbeat that stretched like years, that she wanted him, not because of his survival, but because of the man he was inside. Slowly, she extended her hand, a gesture no alien had ever made to a human before. "I offer you more than safety," she said, her voice low and sincere. "I offer you trust, perhaps even my heart." The human took her hand, his fingers curling around hers with a strength born of both gratitude and understanding. His eyes met hers, steady and honest. "Then I accept," he said. "Not for your power, not for your world, but for the truth I see in you and the courage I carry in myself." The forest seemed to hum around them, as if the planet itself approved. Alien soldiers, once tense and wary, watched silently, sensing that something extraordinary was unfolding. The queen, the ruler of countless worlds, had found herself drawn to a mortal human, and the human, in turn, had proven that spirit could triumph over fear, courage over power, and heart over all else. Valeria's lips curved into a genuine smile, soft and warm, unlike the regal mask she wore for centuries. "You are extraordinary, human," she whispered. "Not because of what you have done, but because of who you are. You have shown me a strength I never imagined a mortal could possess, and you have touched something in me I thought was beyond reach." The human smiled back, exhaustion giving way to a quiet triumph. "And you have shown me a world worth fighting for," he said, his voice steady, honest, and full of quiet warmth. "A world where courage and truth matter, where even the impossible can be faced. And sometimes, even hearts can meet across worlds." For a long moment, they stood there, hand in hand, gazing at each other. The gap between their species, their worlds, and their histories seemed to vanish. All that remained was the human spirit, undaunted, unbroken, shining brighter than any alien power, and the queen who had been captivated by it. Finally, Valeria spoke again, her golden eyes shimmering with emotion. "Then stay," she said, her voice gentle yet commanding. "Stay with me. Stand by my side. Let your heart remain unbroken, as it has always been, and let us face whatever comes together." The human nodded, a quiet smile spreading across his face. He had faced death, survived impossible trials, and even a poisoned arrow. And now he stood here, not as a soldier, not as a stranger, but as someone who had earned the heart of a queen. As the alien night stretched on, the two of them walked forward together. Their hands remained intertwined, a bond forged through courage, trust, and the quiet power of the human spirit. And in that bond, both discovered something neither had expected: that even across worlds, even across species, hearts could meet, spirits could shine, and humanity, undaunted, fearless, and true, could capture even the heart of a queen. The stars above glittered as if in approval. And for the first time in centuries, the queen smiled freely, knowing she had found something rare, something precious, something extraordinary, the heart of a human who refused to bow.